"You're going to freeze to death in those heels," the man said flatly, his breath visible in the icy air. The woman narrowed her eyes, arms folded tightly over her designer coat. Her black luxury sedan sat still on the snowy country road behind her, steam hissing from the hood. "Do you know anything about engines?" she snapped. "I'm late for a meeting and I don't have time for small talk." The man didn't flinch. He wore a flannel shirt, work boots crusted in snow, and the kind of calm patience that only comes from living close to the land. "Yeah," he said, stepping around her toward the hood. "I know a thing or two." He popped it open and leaned in. She looked around, frustrated. Fields stretched endlessly in all directions. A red tractor idled in the distance. No signal, no Starbucks, no one to impress. "You don't look like a mechanic," she muttered, tapping her phone uselessly. "And you don't look like someone used to being stuck," he replied without looking at her. "But here we are." The wind picked up and she shivered. He looked up. "There's a thermos in my truck. Coffee, if you want to warm up." She hesitated, then shook her head. She had built her entire identity around control. CEO of a fashion tech startup. Forbes 40 under 40, keynote speaker. She had assistants who carried her bags and drivers who opened her doors. And yet here, standing in a snowstorm in rural nowhere, she was entirely helpless. And this man, this quiet farmer, didn't ask for anything. Not even her name. After a few minutes of tinkering beneath the hood, he wiped his hands and stood. "Your coolant line's cracked. You're not going anywhere in this," she groaned. "Great, fantastic. Now what?" He looked at her calmly. "Now you get in my truck, warm up, and wait while I tow your car back to the barn. There's a phone there. You can call whoever you need." She stared at him like he'd just offered her a seat on the Titanic. "Your barn?" He nodded once. "Unless you'd rather stand here looking rich and cold." Her pride flared, but her toes were already numb. With a sigh, she followed him to the truck. It smelled like leather and soil and fresh coffee. She took the thermos silently. Back at the barn, she stepped out and blinked. Inside wasn't some run-down tool shed. It was a stunning, repurposed stable with polished floors, shelves of antique tools, and a small desk with books stacked high. He pulled off his gloves, poured more coffee, and finally spoke again. "So what brings a city star like you out this way?" She hesitated. "Investor pitch. I was on my way to close a round. Big one. But I guess the universe had other plans." He nodded thoughtfully. "Funny how the road can humble us, huh?" She gave a half laugh. "Yeah, I guess it can." Then her eyes landed on a photo on the shelf. A younger version of him in a military uniform. Medals, foreign patches, a framed degree from MIT next to it. Her voice caught. "Wait, you went to MIT?" He nodded again. "Mechanical engineering. Did a few things after, then I came home." Her expression twisted with disbelief. Why would someone with that resume end up out here, fixing broken-down cars? He looked her straight in the eye. "Because success isn't always skyscrapers and stock options. Sometimes it's peace, freedom, soil under your feet, and a daughter you get to tuck in every night." She fell silent. She had spent her life chasing the next achievement, the next level. But this man, he had already found what she'd never even known she was missing. By the time the tow truck arrived hours later, her entire demeanor had shifted. The cold didn't sting as much. The silence didn't feel empty. She shook his hand, looked him in the eyes, and said, "Thank you. Not just for the car, for the clarity." A week later, the headlines hit. Millionaire startup founder launches Rural Innovation Fund. What they didn't mention was that the inspiration had nothing to do with spreadsheets. It was born on a snowy road, from a man with calloused hands and quiet wisdom. She never forgot his name. In fact, she wrote it on the foundation's cornerstone. As we wrap up, don't forget to comment your country or city. We'd love to know where you're watching from. So don't underestimate the people the world overlooks. Sometimes the ones who live the simplest lives have the deepest impact. If this story stayed with you, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.